Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss how little gamers actually know about game development. And the thing that brought this up is recently we had Evo happening, and Marvel Tokon got its first, basically its first playable public demo, and people have been talking about specifically Storm's animation. She has like a moving backwards animation, but there's like nothing to it. Like, it looks like she's just still and just randomly sliding. And people have been commenting on it like, oh man, they need to go back to the drawing board and stuff. And I was like, man, people don't understand game development. Like, people honestly think that just because they see it and it's playable, even though this demo literally doesn't even have all the people that showed up in the trailer, like Spider-Man and Ghost Rider were in it, which really sucks because I really wanted to see more Ghost Rider. But like, they don't even have all the characters in the first public demo. It's literally pre-beta. Like, the beta signups went up like over the weekend. So that was really interesting, just seeing that, and it popped in my head like, man, this happens. It's not like it's anything new, where you'll see people on the internet where it's like, we play video games, and they're complaining. People complaining about something doesn't mean that they have any knowledge of it. Let's be honest about that. Just because you're talking about it doesn't mean you know anything. So we can be fair about that in pretty much any regard on any topic on Earth. People love to complain, and they don't have to have a single concept of what they're talking about. They just want to be upset. So it's not uncommon, and it's something that happened before, especially in gaming. And it made me think of like the leaks that we had with Insomniac, where it was like, hey, here's all this stuff from Wolverine. Also looking forward to that game whenever we get something. I'm really hoping this year at the Game Awards. I doubt we'll see anything at Gamescom, so Game Awards at least. Where's Wolverine? But when that came out, same thing was happening. People were like, oh, this game is ugly, like it's not gonna be great, like this is all they got. And it's like, there's no way there are people that are this stupid. I'll say ignorant. I think I mentioned that before. I don't like to just instantly call people stupid. But also, you're kind of stupid if you're commenting on it. And it's like, the Marvel Tokon thing, that's one thing. Like, that game, it's pretty much got like a lot of the visuals in the game. They just don't have like the extra stuff in there. It's not the final version. Still, it is literally pre-beta. It's the first time the game's ever been shown. It's odd that people think that that's the final thing. But people literally saw leaks from a game that didn't even have an official gameplay trailer with this Wolverine stuff, and they're like, this looks like a PS3 game. Like, what are you it doesn't even look like a full game, because it's not. Like, it's very interesting. And so that's why I wanted to make this video, because there's obviously, gaming makes billions upon billions. It is literally like the form of media that makes the most money on Earth. There are tons of people that play games, all different variations. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you can go through my channel. You can see how much I like games and how much I talk about them, especially if you've watched multiple episodes of this series. It's pretty clear as I go through like the stuff that I know about games and all the random facts, because in general, I like to learn about stuff, and because I like games the most, I like to learn the most about games. So I may not know everything because I don't actually develop games, but I watch a buttload of interviews. I watch people talk about them because I actually like to know those sorts of things. That's why I was super happy, because of all the idiots online who were like, man, this game's look like, it looks like a PS3 game with all the leaks and stuff. That actually prompted a lot of developers to be like, hey, here's some old footage and stuff from when we were like first making this game. And it was developers from all over the place. That was like one of my favorite random things in like nerdy Twitter moments. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I love seeing this stuff. And I wish we had more of that in general. I wish we had more behind the scenes stuff, because I'd love to see that. And it reminds me of, man, even though I love to reference the game because I love Dead Space, but F U EA. But when the Dead Space remake was coming out, the developers were just like, hey, here's kind of just an update on the game and how we're making it. Here's how the, deterioration system works on the flesh and the bones. Here's how we're doing like our lighting system. Here's how the sound works. Like, so here's this sound, but if you do it and then the door closes behind you and you hear this sound, it'll sound different. Like, it was like realistic. And it was just simple stuff that they were just showing off in bits and pieces. And I was like, man, I wish every game did this. I would love if, for whatever reason, Capcom was like, hey, you guys want to see like what it looks like when we make the art for Resident Evil? Here you go. Like here's like the early system. They probably wouldn't do that for spoilers and stuff, but I'm sure there are things, just like with Dead Space, even if that was a remake, I'm sure there are locations where they could just be like, here's a location, and here's the design work that we're putting into it to do this or to do that. Like stuff like that would just be really interesting to see, especially if it's a franchise you already love. But I like games in general, so I'd probably watch it on anything if it was legit, just like, here's some straight up raw footage of just wireframes and rigs and stuff. And I was like, cool. Like I'm very curious. You know, you see stuff. Alan Wake is a great example. I've seen, you know, some of the clips they put out where it's like, you know, this is some of the early ideas we had when we were first starting. We were doing like this and this, and it's like, man, it's so interesting to see locations before it's all said and done. And you know, the same thing works if you think about mods that change certain random things in games. You change like filters of games, or there's the mod for Silent Hill 2 that's been popping up. It's been popping up on my feed recently, even though it's fairly old. I saw it when it first came out. But it was like, hey, here's the mod for Silent Hill 2 if you take all the fog out. And it's like an insanely realistic looking game because the graphics are just so high quality. But the whole point of Silent Hill is obviously the fog. So when you take it out, you know, unlike the old HD remaster, it looks great. You know, it looks different, but it looks great. It's just like, man, this is highly detailed and it's really crazy. And that's just awesome. Like cool stuff like that I like to see, because you know, get different layers to the games that you play, and you know, you see trailers and stuff and everything's curated and cutscenes, and I mean, obviously games when they're made as a whole are curated to look a certain way. I mean, honestly, one of my favorite things is the fact that cutscenes are so funny these days, where cameras zoom in. Like, watch any of the behind the scenes for the Resident Evil stuff. Those are the best. If you watch cutscenes from Resident Evil games, I love that. And like, I think most games are like that these days, but it's really interesting where the characters just move all over the effing place and they just put spotlights on them and stuff to make them look a certain way when they're talking and they're on cutscenes and all that stuff, and like how data is saved where characters disappear the instant they're not on camera, all that stuff. I love seeing that. So there's so many elements to games and things that people just don't understand, that it was something that kind of just blew my mind with the Marvel Tokon thing, where it's like, this is literally pre-beta, the first time the game has ever been shown in public and playable, and people are like, man, this animation is stupid, like it doesn't make any sense why this would do this. And it's like, the game's not done. Like, I'm sure there are a million particle effects. You know, I mean, heck, who knows what characters are even going to be in the game. We got 2 characters that we know of that didn't even show up in this playable demo. So who knows how many other characters that they're still working on. And it's like, if people saw those and they saw like wireframes and stuff, would they really be like, oh, this is what they're gonna look like? Like, of course not. It's like, the game's not finished. Once again, the Marvel Tokon, you know, the fighting game is very different than the early leaks for Wolverine, because the Marvel game, I can understand. You see the animation and stuff like that. Yes, it looks, you know, like I'm doing air quotes that you can't see, but it looks like it's finished. I can get that way more. But it does show just on that level, like, well, I obviously know that it doesn't have the effects because the game's not finished. But I obviously know that. But there's a buttload of people that are seeing this because clearly they're interested in this game. They may or may not be interested in Evo. That might be how they found it, or it's just the fact that it's the Marvel fighting game that's coming out and it's Marvel. So, you know, it varies there, because I would assume a lot of people at Evo would already know that information, but you never know. You could just be into it, and then it's like, you don't know the development side, and you're just like, oh, this is kind of wonky. I would assume you would know. But once again, that's just me being the giant nerd that I am. So, wanted to make this random video. Would love to know your thoughts on that. I think I'm going to do a completely separate episode talking about like how much I would actually enjoy behind the scenes stuff, because there's specific games that I'd like to reference and things I wish we could kind of go back to. Another element of, you know, preserving games is kind of even preserving just behind the scenes stuff. I'd like to see a whole lot more. But wanted to do this one. I know this was a fairly short episode. It's going to be like one of those super quick ones. But we'd love to know your thoughts on this. Like, how much do you really know about game development and how games are made and stuff like that versus, you know, your other friends in your group, where it's like, you know, there's obviously the different levels. You know, there's people that play casually. There are people, you know, and by casual people, you probably know, if you're a giant nerd, you probably know what I'm about to say. They play Call of Duty, sports, and GTA. You probably knew that if you're more than just like a casual person, but you might not. And if you didn't, you're probably casual. That's not an offensive thing. It's just an honest thing. A lot more people got into games when the pandemic hit. A buttload of people did. And we can just be honest. It's like, hey, that's all you play. It's all right. A lot of younger people I would consider casual compared to hardcore. Like, just because you play Fortnite 18 times a day doesn't really, you know, like, you don't play that much. You need more variety. I mean, like, there was that video, it was like a month ago or something, where the guy was like, there aren't any games. And he instantly outed himself as like the most casual person ever, because he was talking about single player games aren't entertaining. But the way he phrased it was like my career or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you just like, you can stop right there. If you say my career, that means your idea of single player means you're talking about a fake NBA storyline. That's what you're talking about. Like, he was the definition, based on him saying that, of a dude that plays sports Call of Duty, and GTA. Like, it was very clear. You can find that video. Shout out to the Black Okage. He did a video on that. He said, pretty much anything you need to know. If you play games, you'll probably say everything you might be thinking. The Black Okage said that you can probably find that highlight. And it's like, yep. Like, when I first saw that video, I pretty much said everything that he said during his stream. I was like, yeah, like, this dude outed himself just by talking about, like, my career and all that crap. I'm like, dude, you're literally using NBA as, like, your idea of a single player campaign. Like, what are you talking about? You don't even play games. Shut up. So there are people like that, and then there are giant nerds like me that call out people like that or say, random things that I say where I have all these pointless nerdy facts about games and the history of gaming because it's just fun to me. Thinking back on, like, growing up on X-Play and stuff like that. Like, there are people that are all different levels of playing video games and stuff. They're, the people that are just losing their minds. GTA's coming out next year. That's all they think about. That's all they're playing, except for Call of Duty and some sports game. Like, there's so many levels to it, and there are lots of people in those different levels where it's like, if you're that casual, you probably know nothing about, game development and how games look as time progresses. And if you play a little bit more than that, you probably know a little bit more. But the internet's the internet. It's easy to find that new game that's super popular and be like, wow, finally new footage. And then you're just like, this doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, it's literally the first time the game was ever shown. Like, it's not, like, what are you talking about? But people don't know that. And so it's an interesting thing. It's just being like, I don't know anything about camping. I don't camp. But there are people that are like, they get camping books and all that stuff. Like, I got like the Hunter's Fisher book, whatever the thing was, and I scrolled through there and I was like, cool, I saw some guns that look nice. And I'm like, that's all I saw. I saw duck decoys 3-packs for $60, and I was like, this is a world that I have nothing to do with, but that's fascinating. There are lots of things we don't know, but it's always interesting watching people talk about games when it's very clear. It's like, you should know that this is not final. But people see what they see. Once again, the Marvel thing, slight okay, because the game looks like it's finished. It actually looks complete. But still, people don't have that same kind of concept of like, hey, this is the same as looking at a Marvel movie and you're watching the behind the scenes stuff. Like, you see all the green screens or the bad CG. It's the same thing. Just because it's playable doesn't mean much. I mean, if you've been watching E3 as long as I did, RIP E3, we've seen a couple of stage shows where it was like, oh, your game froze, huh? That's unfortunate. I still remember seeing the Assassin's Creed thing, and there was like a glitch where they killed a guy and he was just floating, and I was like, I caught that. They got past it quick, but I caught that. Uncharted 4, remember when that was on stage for the first time? And it just flat out froze. They could not move the character. They had to reset the whole thing, and then it worked. But for like 2 or 3 minutes, they were just up there like, ooh, it's not, Nathan's not moving. And it happens. Like, it's, development is early. Just because you see something doesn't mean it's all there. I mean, heck, that's why we still get day one patches. Not everything's done when they say it's done. That's just how it is. But like I said, it was the Marvel thing that brought that up, where it was just like, oh, it's interesting how many gamers. I would love, like, if there was some weird godlike way to get the actual statistics of how many people know games on that level versus just play them, I think it would be very, very interesting to see, like, the amount of people that have no idea about development or things being early. I mean, the leak thing is the craziest thing in the world. Like, I couldn't believe that people were seriously talking about that and being like, this looks ugly. And it's like, there's no way you actually think this is what the game's gonna look like. But people actually believe that. And that's fascinating, to say the least. Because it's like, how could you possibly see that and actually believe the game's gonna come out looking like that? What are you talking about? That's crazy. But that's the world we live in. People also complain instantaneously and they think about 2 days later. So that's how that tends to work. But would love to know your thoughts on all things game development and, kind of the weird blending of, gamers versus the knowledge that gamers actually have, casual versus hardcore, all that stuff. I'd be really interested in, like, what is just some of the moments you might have had with people where they might say something and you just realize, oh, you don't know anything about game development. Like I said, this is not, I'm an armchair developer, as we love to say. Like, I just know stuff because I've been, into games basically my whole effing life. But I would love to know if any of you have, like, just funny stories where you talk to someone and it was just like, oh, wow, you just have no concept of what games are like. It's almost on the level of people that still think, like, all games are for kids, and then they'll somehow reference Call of Duty and GTA as, like, the 2 out of 3 things they reference. And it's like, games are just for kids. And of course they'll reference Fortnite, but it's like, you say games are for kids, but all you got, like, half of what you got is going to be M for mature games. Granted, a lot of kids play them. I mean, let's be honest, that's just the way it goes. But technically speaking, they shouldn't be playing those games. But who am I to talk? I was playing Resident Evil 1 at 6 years old, and I'm happy for it. But would love to know your thoughts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.